Gente, boa tarde, bem-vindas, bem-vindos. A gente está começando essa palestra, Recursos Educacionais Abertos, da sala de aula UNESCO, com o senhor Gasper Hrastelj. Eu treinei com o Gasper antes a pronúncia do nome dele, porque senão eu não ia acertar. Eu queria começar agradecendo, em primeiro lugar, o TEL-ML, e a cátedra UNB, a cátedra da UNESCO de Educação Aberta e à Distância, da UNB. Então, a MEL ajudou, proporcionou o contato com o Gasper para a gente trazê-lo para cá. A CI e o Danilo, que apoiaram com a gravação e a transmissão do evento, e os presentes todos. Esse evento a gente realizou pelo NETEL, da UFABC, e também pela Cátedra da UNESCO, de Educação Aberta e à Distância. O formato que a gente previu para o evento vai ser uma fala introdutória minha sobre recursos educacionais abertos, e depois uma fala do Gasper, especificamente sobre a recomendação da UNESCO, que foi aprovada sobre o tema recentemente. O Gasper esteve envolvido nesse processo, então vai ter bastante coisa para contar para a gente sobre isso. A gente tinha previsto inicialmente fazer a tradução consecutiva, mas a gente decidiu fazer diferente. A gente vai deixar o Gasper falar em inglês mesmo, e vamos tentar passar para a CI um vídeo com as legendas. Então, quem estiver assistindo isso sem legendas, a gente vai tentar produzir um vídeo com legendas para ser publicado no YouTube do UFABC também. Então, agradeço ao Gasper também, especificamente, de ter vindo até aqui. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation for this talk. E vou começar fazendo essa pequena introdução sobre recursos educacionais abertos. Acho que aqui na UFABC, a maior parte das pessoas ou nunca ouviu falar de recursos educacionais abertos, ou só ouviu falar. Não tem muita ideia do que é, né? Mas eu queria começar fazendo duas provocações para quem estiver assistindo, aqui ou depois, esse vídeo. Para quem for aluno, estudante, em primeiro lugar, e para os professores que já foram estudantes, né? Quem de vocês já teve que procurar um texto no Xerox e teve alguma dificuldade em relação a isso? Quem de vocês, enquanto estudante atual, ou os professores quando eram estudantes, teve que procurar livros que estavam na bibliografia de uma disciplina e esses livros estavam esgotados? Ou então eles eram muito caros, né? E para vocês, agora para os professores que estiverem assistindo isso, né? E aí professor não só universitário, professor de qualquer nível também. Quem de vocês ficou contente de usar só um livro-texto, um livro básico, e aquilo já atendia todas as necessidades para vocês para dar uma disciplina? Acho que é bastante, eu não sei vocês, mas para mim, eu sempre sinto necessidade de usar materiais adicionais. Não dá para... na verdade, assim, conforme a oferta da disciplina, a gente vê a necessidade de fazer mais adaptações, né, de incluir mais materiais adicionais e tal. E isso não é muito simples de se fazer, né? Combinar materiais. Às vezes você tem um determinado livro didático que é bom em um certo aspecto, mas tem ali um gráfico que está faltando, que você queria de um outro livro, e você não tem como mesclar esses elementos. Ou você tem, mas com frequência correndo risco de violar leis de direitos autorais. E ter que enfrentar dificuldades técnicas para fazer isso. Como que você copia o texto e como que você altera, né? Além disso, uma terceira pergunta para vocês e para a experiência de vocês e a experiência com os colegas. Quem que está assistindo já tem vive com deficiência ou já foi colega de uma pessoa com deficiência? Eu não sei se vocês sabem, mas dependendo da necessidade de acessibilidade das pessoas, produzir material adequado para essas pessoas é muito difícil. Requer, e com frequência vai requerer também violar leis de direitos autorais, você fazer. Nem sempre você tem autorização para fazer as adaptações necessárias gente tem até exceções na lei, mas elas são bastante limitadas em relação a isso. Então, a ideia de REA, feita essa provocação, a ideia de REA é uma das tentativas para tentar lidar com essas questões. Então, primeiro, a questão de acesso a materiais que são caros ou que são esgotados e cujo acesso está limitado pela questão dos direitos autorais. A questão da possibilidade de adaptar os materiais para o contexto ou para a sua experiência como docente, né? A proposta de REA muda um pouco o formato, que seria o formato típico de uso de materiais em relação à lei de direitos autorais, para possibilitar o remix, essas adaptações. O Gasper vai falar um pouco mais sobre a definição de REA que aparece na recomendação, e, na verdade, há várias definições, há conflitos em relação às definições, mas a gente pode falar de forma simplificada que recursos educacionais abertos são materiais educacionais ou de pesquisa, em formato digital ou não, para os quais seja possível fazer uso gratuito e com poucas restrições de direitos autorais, que a gente possa alterar esses materiais e redistribuí-los, sem necessidade de, por exemplo, pagar uma licença para a editora ou ter que obter uma autorização específica de autores. A gente, talvez vocês tenham pensado assim, pô, nunca vi um REA, né? Mas certamente todos vocês que estão assistindo já interagiram com algum REA. Então, por exemplo, a Wikipédia pode ser considerada um recurso educacional aberto. Mas é só um exemplo. Se a gente pensar por exemplo, para os docentes, planos de aula que a gente desenvolva e compartilhe com essa perspectiva, usando licenças que autorizem uso gratuito, redistribuição, adaptação, isso são exemplos de recursos educacionais abertos também. No Brasil, a gente já tem algumas iniciativas legislativas no sentido de impulsionar o uso de REA, mas elas ainda são escassas. Às vezes existe a legislação, mas não existe muito suporte, investimento de políticas públicas para que isso ande. Por exemplo, se eu não me engano, no município de São Paulo a gente tem uma lei, mas tem poucos programas voltados a produzir. No MEC a gente já tem a CAPES exigindo que os materiais que são produzidos para o programa Universidade Aberta do Brasil, e que são pagos, que são produzidos mediante bolsas desse sistema, eles devem ser publicados como recursos educacionais abertos. Mas, vocês vejam, isso é uma gota no oceano dos gastos que a gente tem para a produção de materiais didáticos no Brasil e das necessidades que a gente tem. Pensem o que é o PNLD, por exemplo, o Programa Nacional do Livro Didático, que é um dos maiores, se não o maior programa de compra de livros, programa público de compra de livros no mundo, e que a única exigência que tem em relação a liberar materiais lá é em relação aos materiais digitais. Os livros em si, que são o grosso, que são mais caros, eles são distribuídos sob direito autoral fechado, né? Então, o impacto de uma recomendação por organismos multilaterais, como vai ser o que a gente vai discutir aqui, é importante para ver se a gente consegue avançar no sentido de legislações que garantam apoio à educação pública por meio de materiais acessíveis, redistribuíveis, adaptáveis, que favoreçam a autonomia do professor. Bom, então, de introdução é isso. E aí eu convido, I'd like to invite you, Gasper, to make your presentation, please.
Thank you, Miguel. Okay, as we told from the beginning, I will be talking in English, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you. It's nice that I see your faces here, and if anybody has problems with understanding, please just stop me, and I will try to be not too complicated, and if there will be a reason, you can probably jump in and tell us more. Why I was introduced by Miguel. I'm Gasper from the Slovenian National Commission for UNESCO. Why UNESCO? I don't know if you know UNESCO, the United Nations Organization of Education, Science and Culture. This organization, which was established after the Second World War, they have another field of expertise which is not in the abbreviation. It's called communication and information. So that's why also this organization deals with the digitalization of not only educational systems, but also anything else. Why UNESCO is dealing with open educational resources. The phenomenon open educational resources, OER, was coined, was established in the framework of UNESCO many years ago. It was in 2002. So it was the organization itself in collaboration with other experts, organizations and so on that first talked about OER. So that's why UNESCO. UNESCO tried then to somehow see how the international collaboration, so because UNESCO is a intergovernmental organization, so it's an organization where governments are members of the organization, so they are dealing with member states and governments, not with the field especially, not with experts especially, but with governments. So they wanted to see in the following years, when this term was generated and when it became clear that the educational systems became more and more digitalized and so on, that they started to somehow see that with organizing a first World OER Congress in 2012. That's now 7 years ago, and this Congress gathered member states from all over the world, experts from the field, and they came up with a declaration of OER, with a standing of the art, how far the world is, how far the regions are, how they are working in the field of OER, what are governments doing in the field of OER. There was a declaration. It's only one document which was adopted at this World OER Congress that did not have any further steps foreseen, what will happen afterwards. But as you know, as in other fields where technology plays a big role, everything is happening very fast, much faster than a government or even an international organization can react. So then you can probably go on now with the next slide. We came together, I don't want to, it's only two photos of two important persons which have been playing a big role into the overall process. You don't know them. One of them, you mentioned the OER chairs, the UNESCO OER chairs. One we have also here in Brazil with Telamiel. There are 6 or 7 others worldwide. One is also in Slovenia. But this was an OER chair in the Netherlands. This is Fred Mulder. He unfortunately died this year. The same is the guy on the right-hand side. It's an important person from UNESCO itself. He was the head of the Knowledge Societies division at UNESCO, and he was the one who was really the major supporter of the recommendation itself, and who made it as a person possible that the overall process started. Okay. UNESCO work on OER, I told you, we can go a little faster through the slides, so not to make the process in macro. I came together with my colleagues who established the OER chair in Slovenia already in 2012, 13 or something, because the chair was officially established in 2014. And then we were starting to I don't know, a dialogue with UNESCO itself and also with the field. So with the OE community, which is gathering, for example, every year in the so-called Open Education Global Conference, bringing together stakeholders, experts, international organizations, etc., and also governments from all over the world in one place, debating the state of open education in general, and of course in the last years also of open educational resources. So when in 2014, 2015, the idea came up, why not having a look, because some governments, especially in developing regions, were looking for, for some guidelines, what they shall do how they should work as a government in the field of OER. And they were asking in an organization like UNESCO, how can we work with other governments, with other regions in this field? And an idea came up, why not having 5 years, so 5 years after 2012, another World Congress on OER, so in 2017, to have a look, how far is the development now? How far are the countries developed in the field of OER? Are there country policies, governmental policies in the field of OER? Or is it only the community? Is it only the teachers, students, or other or universities who are having, for example, OER, but the government does not support it, or something else? And so, because Slovenia was quite active with the new OER chair, we have been asked if we would be prepared to host the Second World OER Congress. And we said yes, but we said yes, okay, hosting a World Congress, bringing the whole world into one place, this is good for a country, especially if you are Slovenia and you even don't know exactly where it is. But we said it's important, the result of the Congress is important. We do not want to have another declaration in the field of OER. We would like to have, something which is bringing the international collaboration on another level. We would like to see really some action plan or something, some guidelines or recommendations how international collaborations, so worldwide, can be more intensive and more dynamic as before. So we were working on this, and the overall framework of the process, so not only the organization of a World Congress, we said, let's probably work on a document which could be adopted by UNESCO itself. So a conference document is one thing. Another thing is a legal standard setting instrument which is adopted by an international organization, which in this case it would be UNESCO. And we started debating this, but this process is a huge one, and I would like to, only in the next couple of minutes, I would like to demonstrate to you that from the idea, from the wish of some regions in the world or from some member states addressing other regions or UNESCO itself, that we would like to have something that we can go to our governments and say to them, look, we would like to develop OER in our country. How can we do that? And from this idea, the overall process to reach then the adoption of such a standard setting instrument is a very difficult and I think very long-term one. And this is presented by this little overview, but I will go through in the next few minutes, so you can go on probably. Just for an example, UNESCO is one specialized agency of the United Nations organization. These agencies and the United Nations organization itself, established after the Second World War in 1945, they have not a big power. They were established to somehow, not only, the war was ended, but somehow to rebuild the world, to help to bring the countries together, to engage the world community, to make peace on earth. But these organizations have no big power. You have, for example, in our region, in Europe, we have the European Union. This organization has supranational powers and legislational possibilities. So adoptions which happen at the EU level are automatically binding for every member state of the EU. This does not happen with the UN system. So UNESCO has, for example, 3 options to adopt standard setting instruments. One is a declaration, which was already mentioned from the 2012 OER Congress. It's only a declaration. It's something on a piece of paper which says something, but it has nothing to say to step into action. The second one is a recommendation. This is what we are talking now about in the field of OER. It's not binding, but it's a concrete action plan. It's guidelines, recommendations written down in a document adopted by every member state of UNESCO. It's not binding legally, so you may ask, what does it then have for a force, at least? But one rule is that a member state has to report every couple of years. So it has a moral binding issue. So if, I don't know, Brazil says to Bolivia, look, we have written down in the OER report this and this, what have you done? So, for example, this could be also some pressure for another government, of course. Okay, the strongest instrument that UNESCO has is a convention, but this was not coming into practice for the OER issue because it's a process that takes much longer. For example, for example, the UNESCO Convention on the safeguarding of the world cultural and natural heritage. So these are those things, but these have to go through parliamentary procedures and so on. So you can go on probably. As I told you, this is not so important. We can go probably to the next. Go on. Okay. Okay. One. Okay. One more. Okay. Let's say this. I mean, the World Congress itself. It happened in 2017 in September, and yes, the world came to Slovenia. It was 600, 700 people coming to Slovenia from more than 100 member states. 15 ministers of education came to Slovenia. What was the result? The result was that the ministers, okay, they sat together in a private room for one meeting. They did a ministerial declaration. It was important because it's a political issue if decision makers make also some statements. But the more important document was the so-called Ljubljana OER action plan. That's what I was talking about. It was based on 6 regional consultations which were happening before the World Congress in 2017. One of these regional consultations happened right here in Sao Paulo for the Latin American and Caribbean region, and it was specifically for regions. They tried to identify recommendations how to I don't know, support international collaboration, or in this case, regional collaboration in the field of OER. And we gathered then from all 6 regional consultations these guidelines and the recommendations to put them into an overall action plan, we called it. And this action plan in the end was the basis for the first draft of the OER recommendation. So we adopted it end of 2017. You can go on. I told you 6 regional, more than 105 countries, more than, okay, go on please. More, I will not go for every, okay, one more. That was the gathering of the World OER Congress, but it's now more important to go on. That's the, we have, from the beginning, when we started the regional consultations, we have identified or talked about 5 major issues. And you can imagine that OER, it's depending on the region and then of the development of a state, if it's a, I don't know, a rich country from the OECD, or if it's a developing state from Africa or so. It depends what is important for a specific country. We have identified, not we itself, but the OE community has identified 5 thematic issues, which could be, from region to region of different importance. So it could be language issues, which are important for African countries, because you cannot imagine that everybody speaks English, but probably also that native languages should be somehow probably able to be translated automatically into English or into other languages and so on, or developing sustainability models. This could be probably important for your region, probably for European countries, not as important anymore, because they have such models with policies or so on. So there are these 5 topics have been identified beforehand, and in this framework, the guidelines and the recommendations regionally first and then also globally were inframed, and that was the point. And the Ljubljana Action Plan, you can go on probably with the next slide. The Ljubljana, that was the result of the World Congress, the Ljubljana OER Action Plan, and the ministerial statement, but this is a statement like a declaration itself. But already at the Congress itself, when the process of the drafting of the recommendation started, because we have adopted in September the OER Action Plan, we have already thought about what will happen after the Congress, what will happen after the recommendation someone will be adopted. So please go on. So that was the start of the drafting process, and this was again a big issue because it took again another 2 years. Another 2 years from autumn 2017 to November 2019 that the document was then finalized. And it started with a group of experts which drafted after the OER Action Plan a first draft recommendation text. You can go on. And all the time, you can imagine, all the time there was a big issue, the lobbying issue, because you can imagine not every country in the world was in favor of such a recommendation text. You can imagine that some countries, especially, we were talking with Miguel before, especially federalized countries have issues with a legal instrument in the field when you have this topic divided into several regions in your country and several legislations also which are deciding about the educational system in this concert. But it was especially the United States of America. They were 2 years ago, they were totally against the OER recommendation. We wondered why. You know, it was not only because of their political system, because America has companies which are mostly supporting the development of OER. We have Creative Commons, which is situated in the US. Okay, they are globally, but which have their seat in the US. We have, for example, the Hewlett Foundation, which was responsible for the financial support of our World Congress in Slovenia and the regional consultations. It's an American company, foundation. So why the government of the US was against? It was, the only issue was that they didn't want to have another, instrument to report on. It was not the topic that they are against OER. And on the other hand, we have seen it was not the lobby of the publishing companies, the big ones in the US or so, that were pressing on the government not to be in favor. No, it was this issue, we don't want to be obliged to report. It's our business, and let us in freedom with that. As you probably know, this we say always, it was a little because why Slovenia? Because that we have another OER chair there. But okay, yes, we hosted the OER Congress. But Slovenia is such a tiny little country in Central Europe, I say. It's 2 million people. You have 25 million people living here in Sao Paulo. But we are 2 million people, and it's more visible if a group of researchers or activists presents something to our government. And it's then easier, to bring something through a government in such a small country. And then also it was easier to play a leading role in such a big process for a recommendation, because it would not have been possible for Brazil, it would not have been possible for the US or Germany, or so, because of the so many different political reasons and issues in the country itself to lead such a process. For us it was possible. So someone became famous on this world map, and people from the US State Department were calling us instead of vice versa. So somehow we succeeded to calm down the US. Probably you are aware that the US has left UNESCO in the meanwhile. So they are not member of UNESCO anymore since the end of last year. So they were no danger anymore for the success of the recommendation. However, in the end it was much lobbying at governments, at ministries at UNESCO headquarters, because also the Secretariat, it's a big body of 3,000 people working there, you can imagine, of other diplomats, and the OE community. So this was really an overall process, and then in this process the drafting started. You can go on. And we had, okay, you can go another one. This was, for example, look, March 2018, one of the first drafts of the recommendation text. What is not the typical procedure of UNESCO? I told Miguel before, usually for a recommendation, and there are not many. There are, I told you, in the field of education, there are probably 6, 7 recommendations altogether in the whole overall history of UNESCO. And in the last 20 years, probably 2 or 3 or so. So usually it's not the procedure that, usually they gather a group of 20 experts or so, and they prepare a text, and they lay it in front of, on the table, in front of the governments to decide on it, without consultations. And therefore, usually such recommendations are not really good. Yeah? Here we said, if we are talking about open educational resources, we would like to have an open and inclusive process to draft this recommendation. First they said, it's not possible, but in the end we tried to somehow open up this organization a little, and we had a group of experts, yes, globally. I mean, it was a global group from all over the world, sitting together, drafting first texts, but we said it's necessary to put it online, to promote it in the community, so to share it with everybody, not only governments, but with the field. And so this text, for example, went in summer 2018 online for 2-3 months, and it was a success. You know, we received 150, 200, you know, substantial replies. Not only, yes, we like the text, or so, no, it's bad. No, really substantial, big answers from every layer, you know, from government, also the State Department, the US State Department replied, for example, from the field, from OER chairs, from universities, from teachers, from students even, from other stakeholders, from organizations, etc. So we have seen it works out. So afterwards, you know, then you can go on. Yes, UNESCO procedures foresees expert meetings. It's from time to time these expert groups have to come together and sit together and write this text also together. You can go on. And so we had then, after this first expert meeting, we had a second draft which went again online, and you have seen 96 inputs from organizations as mentioned here, also from countries as mentioned here. So we can go on. After that we had this third draft finalized then with the expert group again, and you can imagine again we had a fourth draft, again also consulted online and so on. Now we are already in the second half of 2018, you can go on. Lobbying was all the time, because you can imagine there was some pressure still from the US. In 2018 there were still members. One little issue I will explain just in the end was the definition, for example, of OER itself. Okay, you can go on. You know, the fifth draft, and you can see how it worked. You know, of course it was online, and the easiest way is like this. Yeah, and such a text needs some really good inputs, and it cannot be another way around, okay? Next one, last mile, what does that mean? We had a fifth draft, now the procedure foresees. Again, it had to be before a text can go to the general conference. It's a gathering of all member states of UNESCO coming together every 2 years, deciding on the overall UNESCO budget and program and so on, and about major program issues. So the recommendation had to be adopted by the general conference, which took place in November this year. But before that, the executive board, so a group of member states which is proposing decisions for the general conference, in April this year had to submit the draft text to the general conference. After this executive board meeting in April, UNESCO called for a so-called Intergovernmental Special Committee meeting. This is an invitation to all member states, and they can delegate anybody. So it could be a representative from a ministry or from university or anybody else coming together once more to really then finalize the draft, which is then to be adopted at the General Conference. Many member states took part at this special committee meeting. It was again more than 100 countries being represented. And the US once more tried to be present, but at this time they were not members of UNESCO anymore. So they couldn't be there. We were afraid a little if they would have a satellite probably to talk in favor of them. However, the special committee meeting prepared then the final draft text of the recommendation, and this was sent out to all governments already in summertime, and in November the General Conference took place, and it was not a big issue. Now you see it was a 4-year process altogether. But then we came together in November, and there is one specialized commission presenting the text of the recommendation, giving once again every representative of the governments the chance to speak for 2 minutes, to say something, but we were surprised because I think the drafting process for the last 2 years, demonstrated that this process was inclusive enough that here, in this case, in November, no single member state, no single government had any issue still to make. So the countries, all member states were satisfied with the text and did with big support, they adopted finally the recommendation text. So this happened end of November, and you can go on. This is how it looked like. It's not the guy here. He spoke only at an agenda item before the recommendation item. He was talking about indigenous languages. He's a representative of one native local community in Canada. But he also mentioned already the OER recommendation because he saw also the necessity of this for his people, you know. And that's only the faces of the presiding people in front of our gathering of member states when it was finally adopted with a little slap of the hammer, and that you can go on. Now, only some numbers that you can imagine what kind of hysteria that is. You can see more than 1,000 people, individuals were involved in this last 4 years. Yeah, it was from, as I told you, experts, governmental representatives, everybody. 4 years of work. That's my email inbox in this I haven't read 10,000 emails, and of course you can imagine that I haven't sent 10,000 emails, but more than 100 tete-a-tete meetings, 8 drafts of the recommendation text, 122 member states out of 193 have commented and participated with inputs. All 100, that's a mistake, 193 member states confirmed the document or adopted it. More than 20 member states, including the most influential and most strong member countries, explicitly expressed when they raised their arm, and they explicitly expressed their support for the implementation. And that's it. I mean, that's it. You can go on probably, but the areas of action we have seen already before. We can go on. That's an illustrative case. That's what I was mentioning. We have the definition of OER. This can be, you know, the one which was created by Creative Commons, for example. The one which was used for, I don't know, many years until 2 years ago. Then a little shift came, not a big one, during the drafting process. It was not a big issue. But, and this was a really turning point in the overall process, which could be also dangerous enough to destroy the whole process. In the end of last year, when we stopped the online consultations we received, and I was talking to our representatives in the expert group which was drafting the text, we received only one member state was asking for a change of the definition. You can imagine which member state this was. It was the US. This proposal was backed by the European Commission, which is not a member of UNESCO. Yeah, but it was backed by them. But this definition totally changed, you know, the sense and the purpose of OER, because they put out major issues like no cost and so on, and put in other issues, for example, the copyright issue and the business issue. And I said, how did it come? Okay, I was not a member of this expert group drafting this thing, but how can it come that one member state proposes something and you include it in the text? And I said, if this will be now put in a formal draft and sent out to member states, the majority will be against the text because it destroys the purpose of OER. And then we had big lobbying issues. You can go to the next slide because you can imagine it came from we had a meeting in this May special committee meeting. There was no US anymore, but the European Commission was present. They wanted also to talk. They can talk as an observer, but they do not have no voting rights and no. But you can imagine that if the European Commission says something, then probably other European member states would say, yes, they are right, but they were not. And we had a little, again, lobbying issues with them, and they said, okay, we can go along also. And that was really a little turning point that what remained is still the old definition of OER, and that's what we were then really seeing as the biggest success of it. Can go on. So this long process, yes, it made really much fun. It was difficult sometimes. It was really probably you have seen no light in the end of the tunnel. But now the recommendation is here. So it was adopted. Every member state has it now. Now the question is, what will happen? What will happen? Everybody, I mean, it's first of all, it's a matter of governments. But however, also you as the community, as users or producers of OER, you can make use of this recommendation. I always say, go to your government. Here in Brazil, it's probably difficult. I mean, we talked about this also at lunch. But we can probably also help, go probably to your UNESCO commission or so. We always say, help your government probably to implement this recommendation. So we have heard from UNESCO itself when the recommendation was adopted last 2 weeks ago. They announced a so-called international dynamic coalition of countries which are most supportive of OER. So from every region, we have seen in the process it was 40, 50 countries from every region that were always talking very much in favor of this recommendation, and this could be one coalition of countries to implement this or to work on the implementation of the recommendation. On the other side, also the community itself already started. The Open Education Consortium, for example, at the OE Global Conference 1 week ago, they also announced a coalition of stakeholders, they call it, that will take care about the implementation. So here we have, and we as Slovenia, because we are always, you know, looking ourselves somehow being a mediator, somehow in between UNESCO, the field, the community, some governments, and so on. We would like to see, because now the game starts only. I mean, we would like to see, we had good experience with the regional consultations because they were successful. For example, everywhere, every consultation, also this one in Sao Paulo 2.5 years ago, it gathered from most states of the region at least 100, 150 people, experts, especially also representatives from government. Why do not probably work on the establishment of regional centers of excellence in the field of OER? This could be the OER chairs, which are already existing. This could be another body or so. But we can make use of that. As I said, depending on the framework of identified topics in the field of OER or international collaboration in the field of OER, what is important for you, your country, what you see as issues in the field of OER? Here, these are specific issues. They are different as for Slovenia, as for Germany or Europe or Africa or any other region. But we will really work on that, not only as Slovenia, but try to convince also and support UNESCO to work on that it will be, okay, regionally layered, to work on this implementation, because now it's important that everybody gets and stays included, so that this text, which, and if you have a look at the recommendation text, the text is not bad. Hopefully also your government will translate it, hopefully somewhere soon, into Portuguese language. In Spanish it is, because Spanish is an official UN language. But however, try to read this text and have a look, and I think that you will identify and see some recommendations which are important also for your country itself. So that would be, you can probably go, it's only one last slide. Yes, this is the final photo after the end of the World OER Congress taking place in Slovenia. Yes, it was and it is still fun, but what I want to say, I mean, the work is now only starting. And I think we will be trying to somehow still merge the interests of UNESCO, of member states and the community to make this recommendation, as it is not a bad recommendation, to make out of this a big success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, that's great. Thank you very much, Gasper. Well, feel free to sit or stay up. Pessoal, eu pergunto se alguém gostaria de fazer uma pergunta. A gente reservou um tempo para debater também essa apresentação. Tem uma opção de coisas que devem ser novas para vocês. Não façam as perguntas todas ao mesmo tempo, que eu fico um pouco confuso. Eu vou começar, então, fazendo uma pergunta. Bom, só um lembrete para quem começou a assistir depois do começo. A gente vai fazer só em inglês mesmo essa apresentação, e depois o vídeo vai ser publicado com legendas. A gente vai fazer legendas para o vídeo. Mas como é uma pergunta agora, eu vou fazer a pergunta em português e depois em inglês, para não ficar tão confuso para quem está assistindo. Começar então fazendo uma pergunta. I will ask you in English afterwards, so I'll just say in Portuguese first. Já deu para entender, né, que na UNESCO a gente vai ter um espaço aí de troca e mesmo de acompanhamento, em que os estados vão ter que reportar o progresso que eles fizeram em relação à recomendação, às políticas sobre REA. E ali vai ser um espaço, inclusive, que pode servir para troca entre os estados, práticas interessantes feitas em países com realidades próximas aos nossos, vão poder ser, enfim, inspiradoras, né, para a implementação. Mas eu me preocupo de como é que a sociedade civil, a academia, também pode participar nesse sentido, né? De que, será que fórum que você identifica como um fórum interessante para a gente trocar experiências no sentido de que tipo de cobrança em relação aos governos, que tipo de campanha, que tipo de auxílio foi mais interessante para que essas práticas avançassem, né? So I was mentioning that we already understand that in UNESCO we will have a place for exchange, but between member states. So member states will have to report their progress with regard to the recommendation. And so that would be a place for accountability, but also for learning about practices that could be adapted, could be an inspiration for instance, for Brazil. But I wonder, how can civil society and academia also find a space to exchange with regard to which were the better ways to help improve those actions made by member states? Which were the better strategies to force or to help in this process? do you identify specific fora which would be useful for this kind of coordination between social movements and academics and so on? Would it be the OEC or the UNESCO itself?
Yeah, this is a perfect question. I mean, it's good because personally, we had a good experience when I told you for the World OER Congress. First, just to make it once again clear, UNESCO didn't want to make, even out of the Congress, not an inclusive event, you know. But we didn't know, you know, inviting only member states, so the governments will make no big sense in regard that the OER community is much larger and much more, you know, numerous. And we said, let's bring them together. Let's invite them for, if they cannot sit in one room, they can exchange, you know, I don't know, then at the dinner or so, to come together with the ministers or so and talk to them. What we did is that we also, the process for the drafting, as for the recommendation, was the drafting issue of the Ljubljana OER action plan. So we had the regional consultations and the results of the regional consultations. And we prepared, of course, we can, if you have it online, we had a website for the OER Congress, and this website enabled also a forum for sharing online, you know, views, inputs, and blah, blah. And we made use out of this website or this forum to put online the OER action plan, the drafts, to gather also inputs from the community from outside. And this, we had a good experience. So it worked out, so the input, and this was the input you were talking about, how the community could connect, probably. This could be really made probably out of such a forum. The OEC is possibly, of course, the most numerous, the largest community in this regard. But we all know there is, for example, the question, yes, the repository of OER, for example. There exists a lot of OER in the whole world, but how do you find it? How do you find them? Yeah, I don't know. A Slovenian teacher will not know if he can probably make use of a learning material from Brazil. It could be possible if he would find it. So there are some approaches. For example, I can talk, of course, of our region only. I mean, there are the German-speaking countries, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Luxembourg, for example, that are trying to make regional, they call it OER festivals or camps, gathering, okay, the German-speaking OER community, but they succeeded, you know, community means really that was a bottom-up process. It was not initialized by governments or by ministries. They came together but invited the government to take part. And now they, in Germany, they are funded the 4th year in a row. So, and then they have promised funds for the next 10 years. So it can be of success if you somehow find a forum, as you said. I mean, I cannot give a concrete answer, but we should probably work on something probably also together with UNESCO, if we can convince them that they will talk also to the community, not only to governments.
This is interesting because as we were talking about lunch, there's also there are people who are worried about practical, immediate implementation. Not only the discussion about the policies, and these communities have to merge together in a way and find ways to work together, right? Bom, deu tempo de vocês pensarem em mais perguntas. Quem gostaria de mandar alguma? Por enquanto a gente vai continuando aqui, se vocês não... Bom, uma outra pergunta que eu queria fazer é também em relação aos passos adiante, né? Como você vê o prosseguimento, o que a gente pode esperar daqui em diante para o que pode acontecer daqui em diante em relação a essa recomendação da UNESCO E o que a gente deve estar de olho? Quais que são os principais pontos que não estão resolvidos, que podem ser fontes de conflito, ou mesmo espaços para que essas questões possam ser solucionadas. So, still on the going forward questions, what can we expect about this recommendation from now on in terms of the UNESCO process? What are the main challenges and unresolved conflicts that still remain, and what can be done about them? In what ways can we expect to intervene and to try to solve those conflicts?
Yes, thank you. I mean, for UNESCO itself and for the world governments, the main issue is, of course, that we do not know, I mean, we do not want, UNESCO does not want to, and no one wants to, that this recommendation is now only a sheet of paper or another text that will be, I don't know, reported on every 4 years or not, because you're not obliged to report on that. So, and then that nothing else happens. That's why we will look, and I can tell you that UNESCO is already planning. It's another, not the same sector as worked with us on the recommendation, but it's the educational part of UNESCO. They are already preparing for next year. It's not concretely about the recommendation itself. It's about OER, especially OER in educational systems. So how we talked also at lunch, we talked a lot. How can, for example, I don't know, publicly funded educational materials be made, I don't know, openly licensed? How could the policy building process for different governments can be engaged? How could it be supported and so on? These are issues which are important, because if I'm talking to other countries, it's not a lot of governments that have OER policies or strategies in that they are already established. So this is one challenge which could be, but for me it's very important now, as you know, we shared this information with the overall OE community, and now I think most of important it is that from now on, when we are in this wave, we do not wait for half a year or 1 year or so, but that we take action now, in the beginning of next year or so. And as I told you, if it's the establishment of regional excellence centers or so on, or make an action plan. Every region can make an action plan for the implementation of the recommendation, and here the regions can work also together. Yeah, why not starting it like this? I mean, this is the challenge I see.
Questões? Bom, eu vou colocar então uma última questão, que talvez seja uma questão de uma perspectiva muito singular. Não sei, você vai me dizer, talvez você não seja difícil opinar à distância em relação a isso. Mas eu tenho discutido, inclusive com o Theo, um texto que a gente produziu recentemente foi a respeito disso, do risco que existe, particularmente em países em que a área da educação privada e da produção de materiais e sistemas de ensino privados está muito concentrada em poucas empresas, se não for olhado com cuidado da perspectiva do público, do setor público, entrar numa estratégia comercial que favoreça esses grandes grupos em detrimento da ampliação da educação pública. E eu queria saber se esse é um debate que tem surgido em geral. Você já comentou que o lobby privado, na verdade, foi pouco presente. Isso, para mim, até surpreende um pouco, porque no nosso contexto local, eu acho que o lobby privado de editoras e empresas da área educacional vai ser grande. So this might be a question from a very localized perspective. I'm not sure how much if you will be able to comment on this, but I have been discussing with Miguel, including in one article that we have wrote recently, about the risk that exists, that particularly in countries such as Brazil, where the private sector, in terms of education, is highly concentrated in the hands of a few companies, that if the public sector doesn't work carefully with the policy making, OER could be construed in a way that helps the commercial strategies of those companies in detriment of the public sector. That is a risk that we see in some scenarios. Has this discussion been present in this whole debate? You have already mentioned that the private lobbying was not very active there, but it's kind of interesting because in Brazil we fear that the private lobbying from publishing houses and educational companies, which are very large here in Brazil, will be strong, and they might try to root around OER for private profit and against public education. How is this debate going, and do you have anything to comment on that on the international perspective?
I mean, yeah, from 1, 2, or 3 points about this. In the overall drafting process, this debate was not very present. That's true. I can tell that, but I have the same issue what you mentioned. Okay, Slovenia, it's not the public. I mean the private companies, but the danger or the danger has been relevant to the government. That, for example, our UNESCO OER chair is based on a research institute in Slovenia. It's a publicly funded research institute. But those people, you know, educational systems, as we are aware or not, are changing very fast. Yeah? And we know that they will not be like in 10 years as they are today. And, you know, when they started an initiative, the OER chair, which is called Opening Up Slovenia. It's not only about opening up education, it's opening up the whole, you know, system or so, you know. And here they rushed a little faster than the government is able to do. You know, they invited the ministries to be in this initiative, but they were too slow. And then they have seen, because they had success at educational institutions, at universities, at schools, at kindergartens and so on, with their approaches, with OER, with everything, so that the government decided to unjoin this initiative, because they thought they are establishing a parallel educational system. You know, not based on private companies or so, but here, you know, it's a somehow common danger, you know, or issue that has been recognized. But in Europe, I see another issue, and that is the European Union, which this is the other which was debated in the overall process, the copyright issues. It was mentioned. It was not as strong then visible in the overall text, in the adopted text, but especially from Japan or so, the issue was very much discussed. And I don't know, here you don't know about this, but the European Commission recently adopted a new directive on copyright. And this is very much going into also this issue about educational materials and so on. It could happen that it will change, you know, it will a little, you know, make the internet, for example, unfree, because now they are, for us, they are stepping one step backwards, because now when you were able to distribute a article from the New York Times, for example, on Facebook, now you will have to ask first the author if you may do so. So it's a way back, a step back, and this could harm also OER, of course. So this issue is what we have now in Europe especially. So but that's my comments on that.
Okay, so just to make clear, I'm completely in favor of this, and we're just talking about the risks that lies somewhere in the details sometimes. Bom, pessoal, alguém gostaria de... Todos envergonhados. Então, eu acho que a gente encerra por aqui, agradecendo muito a presença do Gasper e de vocês. E em breve vocês vão ter o vídeo legendado no YouTube. Então é isso. Thank you so much. Very informative talk.